During the events of 2020, most of us felt isolated and alone, not alleviated by our favorite out-of-touch celebrities singing Imagine at us, or having Sam Smith cry in their estimated £12 million mansion.
Hello everyone. This is a weird time. Oh my gosh. Very, very strange. I'm currently in my house. I have got a bit of a headache and I've got allergies.
No, most of us look for solace and distraction through social media, with one platform in particular skyrocketing to a new stratosphere of success because of it. It's fair to say that 2020 really was the era for TikTok's mainstream growth. With people being stuck inside, lonely, and in need of community, it was the perfect boiling point for a multitude of quirky fashion and lifestyle trends. We saw the rise and fall of the strawberry dress, a highly coveted item retailing at over £400, spurring on many tearful unboxings, try-ons, and even bootlegs. And another strawberry trend that gained similar virality was the strawberry cow audio, used for showing off pillow pets, makeup looks, and even outfits. But I'd wager that the most remembered trend from that era wasn't Benji's makeup or even Animal Crossing. It was the now infamous 2020 alt talk. This trend of glittery anime profile pictures, fishnets, and thick eyeliner really defied a rebellion against the pressure of societal beauty standards. It was a revival of accessible alternative fashion that appealed to everyone from kids to kidults. But sadly, this trend got thrown into the pile of cringe alongside many other lockdown hobbies as soon as society began to get back on track. So why is it at the start of 2025, with the US facing an imminent TikTok ban, that people are pulling these clothes out of retirement to revive an era that we left behind almost half a decade ago? Well, strap in, because we're about to get academic and do the video essay trope of talking about some history. So firstly, before I try to break down what 2020 alt talk was like aesthetically or otherwise, I feel like it's important to understand what alternative fashion is and why new subcultures and styles are created. At the back end of World War I, a new era of art, cinema, and expression was emerging in Germany. Having swallowed their defeat in war and with common society scrambling to regain normalcy, it created an atmosphere rich in politics, pessimism, economic instability, and of course, suffering, very quickly nurturing a new avant-garde art rebellion under the Weimar Republic. Art movements such as Dadaism were born as a reaction to the horror and societal trauma of war, creating media that reveled in absurdity and shone a light on the inadequacies of their government. Hannah Hock, who is better remembered and appreciated in more recent years, was a controversial Dada artist during and after the Weimar Republic. She pioneered photo montages and created artwork that critiqued German politics, living standards, and of course the treatment of women at the time. Or in better words, and as a Guardian so concisely put it, she could be considered one of punk's original artists. Now let's jump to 1970s Japan, where the rapid post-war industrialization was taking place, growing the notoriety of brands like Toyota and Sony globally. More people were upping sticks and moving to industrious areas like Tokyo in order to find work. And at the same time, women were starting to gain more access to jobs, careers, and opportunities that had previously been closed off to them. Their rights were starting to improve, albeit slowly. And so suddenly, with this new ability to have a career whilst also still having the pressures of womanhood in Japan, many women began to gravitate towards clothes that fell under the style of otome. This otome fashion and style was in reference to hobbies and clothes that were more traditionally youthful and feminine, hence the name otome, which is Japanese for maiden. And the clothing that you typically see within otome would be these long, flowy skirts, cute jumpers or cardigans, frills and blouses, and of course an array of cute patterns and colours. Harajuku also became an emerging hub for women interested in this style. And due to this new foot traffic, brands like Milk and Angelic Pretty stepped in to accommodate, helping to slowly form what we now know as Lolita fashion and also the accessibility to ready-to-wear clothes, when previously most otome and Lolita had been DIY'd. Lolita fashion was all about bringing joy and whimsy to the wearer, taking great inspiration from the silhouettes and styles of French Rococo and British Victorian garments. It was a fashion subculture that stepped away from the societal standards of Japanese femininity and instead focused in on the escapism and enjoyment of controlling one's own self-perception. Now, although not intentionally created as a rebellion, it has been argued that Lolita was a byproduct of the emerging feminist presence during the modernization of Japan, focusing less on the male gaze or the expectations of raising a family, and instead focusing unapologetically on oneself. And another Japanese subculture and subsequent fashion style that has also pushed rebellion against societal expectations is menhera. Now, before any fashion style was ever established, menhera was a social movement, derived from the slang menhera, which was often a term used against people with mental health issues. A bit like how emo was used as a slang or shorthand for somebody who was perceived to harm themselves here in the UK. Same kind of energy, but the Japanese term definitely carries more stigma. Now, the slang menhera was reclaimed by netizens over on Japan's 2chan board, challenging the pressures of Japanese society and their treatment of mental health through vent art and discussion, fostering both an online community and an underground subculture. culture. And later, around the mid-2010s, some within this community took to furthering this expression through fashion, creating the fashion style yami kawaii, which roughly translates to sick cute. This style will be characterized by medical motifs such as bandages, plasters, and syringes, as well as comfy but often cute clothing such as baggy t-shirts and knee socks. The style confronts the topic of the wearer's health or feelings through a visual format, bringing what is often suppressed back to the surface, and unapologetically undermining the keeping up appearances culture of Japan. Yami kawaii also gained more notable popularity and wider awareness here in the West around 2018, with media outlets such as Refinery29 creating YouTube documentaries about the subject to the tune of over 13 million views.
This is so cute, but what does this say?
I want to die.
I want to die. Oh.
Bringing characters like Izaki's Menheda-chan into infamy. Now you may be wondering what these three art and fashion subcultures have in common. The work of the Weimar Republic compared to Menheda-chan doesn't really have a lot of overlaps. But the answer is actually fairly simple. Alternative fashion and subcultures are almost always a byproduct of political or social unease. So often when the working class or marginalized groups feel oppressed, ignored, or overlooked, art in various forms becomes the outlet for this unrest. Punk, for example, was the anti-establishment counterculture to the 60s era of peace and love, clapping back at the state of Western society and giving a middle finger to social injustice. In times of uncertainty, people no longer look to their leaders as an example, but instead often seek out those who exist or feel similarly. They look for answers and expression from within themselves. And in my opinion, this is exactly what 2020 alt-talk was at its core. Now coming back to present day, let's break down what 2020 alternative fashion was aesthetically, but also what it represented. So visually and stylistically, the alternative fashion boom of 2020, also known as E-Kid or alt-talk or ane-talk, was a combination of existing styles and influences, the name E-Kid being a derivative of the pre-existing e-girl aesthetic. But unlike e-girl, more so focusing on younger people innocently engaging with fashion and fandom online. Now in terms of makeup, the use of thick eyeliner, bright colors, and even tattoo-esque embellishments is very reminiscent of 90s mall goth, corpse paint, and of course emo. It was bold and messy and at times quite theatrical. It was makeup you didn't expect to see off screen, especially during your daily grocery shop or on the local bus. The inherent chaos of a lot of these makeup looks came from not only the exaggeration, but also the inherent skill level of a lot of the people wearing it. Again, with most of the people being from a majoritively younger crowd. And alongside this makeup, the fashion would also very visually stand out. On their heads, the typical e-kids might wear the now iconic bunny hat with movable ears, or an assortment of cute pop culture hair clips, both of which take great inspiration from East Asian alternative fashion styles such as yume kawaii, yami kawaii, and decora. And when it comes to tops and t-shirts, a common combination was the layering of a long sleeve top or a fishnet undertop with a baggy band tee or a cute oversized shirt. Sometimes they'd endeavor to further layer and outline the physique of the wearer with the use of a plastic boned waist trainer or some studded belts layered up. And when it came to bottoms, it was often more versatile, sometimes being as simple as safety shorts and knee socks, and other times being a pleated skirt partnered with a horde of tights and garters. And when it came to shoes, a popular go-to was platform boot brands such as New Rock or Demonias, something that had a distinctive or heavy visual presence to add to the outfit. You could usually tell which alt kid just had a birthday or disposable income by what boot brand they wore with their outfit online. Now, although the textbook examples of this style may lead you to believe it was more marketed towards young girls, at the time it was used more androgynously and often associated with the younger queer community. It's why you've likely seen the rather unflattering and unkind videos where people are dressing up in this way for parody, using neo-pronouns and choosing a more colourful chosen name. Names like Bug or Bunny or Arson or Shadow.
Hey there, I'm Arson. I'm Dragon. My pronouns are Cloud, Pup, Pup Self, Cloud Self, and Pup Self.
And although it's apparently very humorous to some, it was genuinely a style and trend that offered a lot more grace to people who were trying to figure themselves out or find a community that they could gain support from. Being a queer kid stuck inside with a limited social life, it's more than understandable that you turn to the internet to find answers to questions regarding self-identity and expression. And in fact, you could argue that E-Kid was the direct remedy to E-Girl, a style which, although at one point could have technically been classed as alternative, quickly became the signature standard of manic pixie beauty. A messier, albeit flatteringly manifestation of the male gaze. A feminine girl who enjoyed gaming and wearing her boyfriend's baggy top, but was still undeniably within the mainstream accepted beauty standard. Popularized by controversial creators like Belle Delphine, E-Girl became the calling card of the OnlyFans era. Meanwhile, in an unintentional retaliation, the E-Kid era sought to defy the male gaze or expectations of gender and beauty. E-Kids were unapologetic about their hobbies, favorite anime, or even mental health. They'd film videos in local cemeteries cooking up super sour drinks that would be known as battery acid. existed. They'd post fun and campy cosplay videos mimicking the movements of characters from games like Danganronpa, or lip-syncing lines from their favorite shows like Bluey. The E-kids weren't necessarily modern punk, but they were making a statement, refusing to adhere to the societal or social pressure that they'd previously experienced at school or at work. Even the media and artists commonly popularized within alt-talk typically held a lot of anti-establishment and LGBTQ+ positive themes. Musicians like Jasmine Bean, Melanie Martinez, and Ashnikko were very popular and were visually and artistically very loud, with many songs from these artists having a greater narrative or storyline and pushing back against societal norms. Even the rise of anime, despite not being political, felt like a reclamation of media and a hobby that had long been held in contempt as childish or immature, or that key word that we hear so often now, cringe. However, just like any fashion trend, it didn't take long for capitalism to do its thing. And sadly, unlike many alternative predecessors, the existence of easy-to-access fast fashion had erased the knowledge and desire to DIY your E-kid wardrobe. One of the biggest issues when it came to the 2020 E-kid or alt-talk era was this over-reliance on exploitative fast fashion. With everybody being stuck indoors, many businesses not having the infrastructure to handle online orders, and of course having a very tight budget, it gave easy access for fast fashion giants like Shein and Romwe to make their way in. They saw this growing trend amongst young people who didn't have the budget for established brands, but who still wanted to join in this trend. And so, just like any evil corporation, of which they are, they pounced, quickly adding an aesthetics tab to the Romwe homepage, marketing it as a young person's one-stop shop for every fashion style that they wanted to be involved with. If you wanted a cute pair of fluffy leg warmers or slouch socks, Romwe could sell it to you for under £5. You want a cute sailor outfit to wear? Don't worry, you can nab it off of the Romwe website for £10. In fact, it's depressingly easy to rush onto Romwe and buy a whole new wardrobe of alternative fashion in one big shopping haul. Now, as somebody who's been into alternative fashion since I was 8 years old, I completely understand the desire to want to have it all immediately. There's no worse feeling than wanting to explore and express who you are, but not having the accessibility or means to do so. When I was a kid wanting to explore alternative fashion, things like Shein and Romwe were simply not commonplace or widely available. Now, fast fashion absolutely still existed, but unless you wanted a Primark tracksuit or an overpriced H&M jumper, you had very little options when it came to accessible alternative clothing. There wasn't the widespread availability of Hello Kitty collaborations, or even East Asian media as a general. The difference to accessibility to that sort of stuff from when I was a kid to now is vastly different. It was commonplace and expected in many alternative fashion styles and subcultures to save your money up and build that wardrobe up over time. In some communities, such as Lolita, you'd even be shamed for buying bootlegs or buying replicas or cutting corners. Having a different fashion style or being within an alternative subculture usually came with this as a rite of passage. The struggle of trying to find cute clothes, learning how to online shop to find the clothes that you actually want, and of course, in many instances, learning how to DIY or thrift. I can only imagine if Romwe existed then the way it does now, many alternative fashion styles and brands would simply not exist or would have ceased to operate. Even in 2025, it's way too common to see bootlegs of established brands within alternative fashion spaces being copied and sold on places like Shein and Romwe. And this was one of the biggest issues with 2020. Teens who had limited money but also unlimited access to the internet, wanting to be part of a community marketed and designed with them in mind. It was not uncommon to see E-kids posting regular fast fashion hauls, or even have collaborations with brands like Shein and Romwe, showing off bootleg anime figurines and an abundance of clothes that they hadn't considered the longevity and styling of. They didn't have to consider the ethics behind the clothes that they purchased, because the style was founded in an era where the education about DIY and the cost of clothes was simply not commonplace. And truly, as much as I respect some people's need to have access to fast fashion for necessities such as work, school, or day-to-day wear, I will never forgive brands like Shein or Romwe who have profited massively off the vast amounts of art theft from within alternative fashion spaces, and muddying the water for a lot of young people when it comes to alternative subculture beliefs. Normalizing the idea that buying a whole themed alternative wardrobe is a human right here in the West, whilst they directly exploit the working class in the third world to push that narrative. I could spew on about this for hours, and I have already covered it in my Cute Core video where I interview a small brand that has had their design stolen by Romwe. So when it comes to fast fashion, we're going to put a pin in it now until another day. Instead, let's move on to some of the other issues when it comes to the E-kid era of 2020. 2020. Now, although it's hard to find direct sources for a lot of this infighting, 2020 alt talk was also an era for some bad habits. Now, as I discussed in my dissection of cutecore, which was a popular style during 2020, there was a lot of issues surrounding fat phobia, colorism, EDs, and fetishization, with much of this stemming from the e-kids' access to the unmonitored internet. We all know spaces like Twitter, Tumblr, or TikTok can be just as harmful as they are helpful, quite quickly allowing someone to get naively pipelined into diet content or watch a video that makes them question whether they have the right skin tone to wear a certain fashion. Now, in 2025, these issues have most certainly not gone away, but for a lot of young people during 2020, this was their first exposure to it, and especially at a time during heightened anxiety. And the same anxiety led to a lot of teenagers having a knee-jerk reaction when it came to the reality and possibilities of cancel culture. They were witnessing a lot of social injustice happening through a screen and felt powerless to get involved. So instead leveraged the power of the internet for well-meaning but often hasty call-outs. Didn't post a Hello Kitty ACAB post that was trending? You could immediately expect to be met with an anon Instagram account calling you out. Didn't agree with someone in a group chat or decided to do your own research first? Expect a TikTok naming you to go viral within 2 working days. Navigating the treacherous landscape of political and social awareness on platforms like TikTok during 2020 was a task. You could genuinely believe all of the right things but still be caught with your pants down when it came to a topic you simply weren't aware or read up on. It became far too easy to simply disagree with someone and decide to serve them up a slice of social humbling. And even adults who are aware of this new social landscape were falling foul to this behavior too. I witnessed firsthand group chats amongst popular creators turn sour very quickly. In one instance, watching these same creators try to sabotage a brand collab for other people that they simply didn't get on with. And I won't lie, I experienced many a panic attack over these covert conversations, especially as somebody who gained sudden digital growth during this era and has always struggled with their tone. I was simply not prepared for this scale of competition and competitiveness in 2020. And in this sense, 2020 was as restrictive as it was liberating. It allowed people to feel empowered by politics and identity, but it also left no grace to be given to those who simply couldn't keep up, marking it as a rather spiteful time in history for those who simply wanted to escape online, and instead suddenly felt the eyes of Big Brother watching. So now we're back to 2025, and somehow I've managed to bring up the Weimar Republic in a video that should have been fairly surface level. Originally, the video was meant to be surface level, I swear. So you may be thinking, Addy, what gives? What's the point? Well, to put it simply, and to summarize the topics that I've already raised, I believe that 2020 alternative fashion emerged out of social and political unease. This trend started off the back of an illness that no one had ever seen before. A complete shutdown of society and the infrastructure that we were all familiar with. People were getting sick, people were bulk buying, and even the cynics were starting to worry about their health. Kids were sent away from schools for 2 weeks, but many didn't return until 2 years later. And of course, during this time, there was a distinctive rise in alt-right media and discussion. We saw the protests and marches and the mistreatment of people placed in society's care. With Trump leaving the White House in early 2021 and the events of January 6th, many people from within marginalized communities and groups felt especially unsafe and fearful. And just like with many alternative subcultures and styles, this unrest and uncertainty became a breeding ground for a new era of self-expression and discovery, especially amongst the young people who more than anyone felt isolated and alone. And so is it really any surprise that in 2025, after media campaigns imbued with hatred, the rise of men with microphone podcasts, and the rise of a political horizon that threatens our autonomy, the e-kids want to go back to an era where they felt safe to be heard and seen, where they found community, self-expression, and a freedom of identity that more than ever feels threatened offline. I welcome the return of the e-kid. I rejoice in seeing young people experience euphoria over their appearance. It might be seen as cringe to some, but let's be clear, there is no shame in standing out, and more often than not, that visibility, regardless of the form it takes, offers rebellion in the place of fear. Dig out your demonias, jump onto Vinted and get thrifting, and most importantly, have fun. But let me know down below, what do you think of 2020 e-kid fashion? Were there any TikTok trends or music trends that you really enjoyed? Were you one of the paper wig cosplayers or somebody that added loads of beads and decorations to their cosplay? Did you try out a new fashion style in 2020 because you felt safer to do so? And most importantly, how do you feel about the return of 2020 TikTok? And what would you want to see done differently? Thank you so much for all the love on my previous content. I always worry that I haven't done the video well enough, and I spend so long scripting and editing and getting everything together that I'm always really anxious when it comes to uploading. So thank you for all the support. And of course, if you want to see my other socials and keep more up to date with daily uploads, check out my Instagram and my TikTok. I know that we don't know what's happening in the US with TikTok yet, and it could very well be banned, but just give give it a follow anyway, just in case. And finally, the best way that you can support me outside of watching this video and dropping a comment is to click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon next to it to keep up to date for when I next upload. Thank you all once again for watching this video, for dropping a comment down below, and if you haven't dropped a comment yet, why not? Say hi. And now, as always, it's time for an outfit check. Bye! Okay, it's time for the outfit check. Starting off with my goggles, I got them many years ago. I think I got them from AliExpress, but you can find them in the thrift, you can get them other places, but I do wear the life out of these. Also, makeup wise today, I kind of wanted to take inspiration from the 2020 E-Kid makeup. I softened it up a little bit and made it my own, but I've got some dots here. I've done my old school spiky eyeliner. If you've been following me for a while, you remember this. My safety pin necklace here is from Named Collective. This safety pin necklace here is from Vivienne Westwood. And then this razor blade necklace is from Marc Jacobs, but I did replace the chain with one from Angel Type, which is a cool little niche store. The top that I'm wearing is from 6 Dimension Shop, which I've worn a couple times in my videos. They're a great little indie business. I have my Supersonico wristband on. The pen ring on my middle finger from Evangelion is from the shop Angel Type, the same as the chain. It's pure silver, and I really recommend checking them out. They do some fantastic stuff. And then this ring here is from Vivienne Westwood. The belt that I'm wearing was gifted to me from Goni Shop, which is a UK anime inspired small business. And then my trousers, as always, are from Named Collective.